Hello everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of Victory IS. We have been discussing the topics pertaining to the current affairs for the year 2022-2023. In the same series, today I am going to talk about another very important topic pertaining to broadly the environment conservation, and these topics hold great significance, great importance for the upcoming prelims examination. So, without wasting much time, let's talk about the topics that we are going to discuss today. The first topic that would be discussed today is the State of Environment report. Although this report is from 2022, we'll talk about certain things which hold importance every prelims. At the same time, we'll talk about certain findings which are very relevant for the upcoming examination. The second topic that we are going to talk about is related to climate finance. We know that at the international level, different climate funding mechanism exist, but there are certain critical gaps in those funding mechanism. So there is a report that talks about it. We are going to talk about that report in detail. At the same time, we'll talk about all the important funding mechanisms. For example, the Global Environment Facility, Green Climate Fund, then you must have heard of something called as Loss and Damage Fund, Adaptation Fund. So different kinds of funds are there at the international level to fight against the crisis, the existential crisis called climate change. And then the last third topic that we are going to discuss is related to green jobs. So there are certain new forms of jobs that are coming into picture with the idea of sustainability in the economy coming into picture. So we'll see what are those important jobs, what are those important discussions with respect to that topic, and accordingly this is how we are going to cover these three topics in our discussion. So let's begin with the first topic. The first topic, as I said, is related to the State of Environment report. So just remember this report, State of Environment report, that this is an annual report. It means that every year this report is getting released. So obviously the report of 2025 has also been released. We'll discuss that sometimes later as we are covering all the important topics from 2022. So this is just the beginning. So this is an annual report, but obviously this fact is not going to change, and this has been released by every year Center for Science and Environment. So this Center for Science and Environment, it is an independent body. It is an independent body, an independent think tank located in Delhi. It is established in Delhi. So it is an independent think tank. Independent means it does not work under any ministry. So it is not associated with any ministry. So such questions might be written in the examination that it is associated with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. So it is an independent think tank, and since it is a think tank, so it is involved in conducting research and advocacy for the issues pertaining to environment. So this is broadly the objective or mission of this body, the independent body called Center for Science and Environment. So let's see what this report is saying. The report of 2022 is saying with respect to the state of the environment. What is the status of the environment across different sectors, across different parameters, that has been highlighted by this report. So first thing it says that the rivers are facing heavy pollution. So let's see what kind of pollution it is talking about. So basically it is saying that the river water bodies are experiencing pollution of heavy metals. So the contamination of the river bodies is exacerbating because of the increased presence of the heavy metals. Heavy metals such as iron, lead, chromium, nickel, in fact copper. These are the examples of heavy metals which are toxic in nature. After a certain level of the concentration into the water bodies, they become toxic, they become carcinogenic, and also they have certain negative environmental impacts as well. For example, certain of it are also responsible for biomagnification, eutrophication, biomagnification. So we will have a discussion about all these heavy metals. So this is what the report is saying, that the glacial lakes are expanding. What is the meaning of the glacial lakes? Glacial lakes are the lakes which are found in high altitude areas. High altitude means the high reaches of the mountains. These lakes are located in the high reaches of the mountains, and these lakes are fed by the water from the process called melting or thawing. So whatever water they hold the water because of the melting of the ice cover or the snow that are found in this area. So what is happening, that these glacial lakes which are found in the high reaches of the mountains, if you talk about India, in Himalayan regions, they are expanding. Expanding means they are getting larger supply of the water because of greater melting of the snow cover, greater melting of the ice cover. So these lakes are expanding, and this is a point of concern for the environment. Why it is a point of concern? See, these are the glacial lakes, they are providing water, especially the fresh water supply, but these glacial lakes are present in the mountain areas, and mountain areas are the fragile ecosystems. These are the fragile ecosystem. If let's say there is a lake, and if its weight is increasing because water is increasing, so the weight of this lake will also increase, and this is already a fragile ecosystem. So chances are likely that this lake might outburst, might collapse, and because of this collapse of this lake, it might result into something called as glacial lake outburst flow, GLOF. So because of this expanding nature of the glacial lakes, ultimately it might result into a disaster which is called glacial lake outburst flow. And if you know the flood disaster of 2013 of Kedarnath is in Uttarakhand. So this Kedarnath flood of 2013 is a typical example of glacial lake outburst flow. So that is why it is a concern that lakes are expanding, and the report is saying that the lakes and the water bodies in India, especially in India, China and Nepal, are recorded to be over 40% rise in the water spread. So it is a point of concern because these lakes are present in the fragile ecosystem. Further increase in the water will go beyond the capacity of these lakes, and those lakes might collapse ultimately and resulting into some flooding situation or a disaster like Kedarnath of 2013. So that is why these are the concerns. Then There are several reasons at risk because of this again rising water level, and this is happening mainly because of the global warming and climate change. So 5 Indian states and 2 UTs are at grave threats from the expanding water bodies, especially these are the coastal areas. So this is how the report is talking about the rising water level. It is talking about certain other things as well. So the report also mentions about the crisis in the coastal areas, which is in the form of coastal erosion. So coastal erosion has become common thing in the marine ecosystem. So what is happening here, that the statistics is saying, the report is saying that over a third of India's coastline witnessed erosion between 1990 to 2018. West Bengal is the worst hit with 60% of its shoreline under erosion. So the coastal areas are experiencing severe erosion again because of the rise in the water level in the oceanic bodies. In the Bay of Bengal region, if you know, this is Bay of Bengal, and this part is Arabian Sea. In fact, if you have seen, these days the frequency and the intensity of cyclones have also increased. If you know the facts, Bay of Bengal, the part of the Indian Ocean, used to experience large number of cyclones compared to Arabian Sea, but now in the recent past it has been observed that even the Arabian Sea is also experiencing large number of cyclones emerging in this area. So it is all happening because of the global warming and climate change. And yes, so it is now talking about coastal erosion. Since cyclones, they hit the coastal areas, they make the landfall over these coastal areas and causing coastal erosion in these areas, right? So the key drivers are the increased frequency of cyclones, not only in Bay of Bengal but also in Arabian Sea, and then rising sea levels. The sea levels are rising because again because of the increased level of melting, and that is attributed to global warming and climate change. Then the human activities, the harbor construction for harboring the large vessels, the large ships, so they are also resulting into coastal erosion. Then obviously the mining, dam building, all these anthropogenic activities are directly contributing to coastal erosion, and this has becoming a crisis. And 60, to give you the facts, nearly 60% of the coastline of West Bengal is kind of under the shoreline erosion. Okay, then moving further. Not only this, the report also highlights that there are presence of heavy metals as the contaminants in the river bodies. So there is a state of environment report. First is talk about the increasing level of water in the river bodies, then the coastal erosion crisis, and third thing it is highlighting that the heavy metal contamination is increasing in the rivers. These are the heavy metals that it is talking about: lead, iron, nickel, cadmium, arsenic, chromium, copper. All these metals, these are the heavy metals which are toxic after certain level of concentration, and some of them are non biodegradable as well. And because of this is becoming an environmental concern, and obviously since these are toxic, they'll have the adverse health impacts as well. So lead, iron. In fact, all these, if you look at the major sources, are the industrial discharge. These heavy metals are getting released into the water bodies, into the rivers from the industrial discharge. The industries such as, say, metal processing industry, the metal processing industry, the tanneries, the tannery industry, then the mining activities, in fact the agricultural surface runoff, the agricultural surface runoff, all these things are contributing to release of these heavy metals. How come this agricultural surface runoff is contributing to the release of these heavy metals? You know that in the agriculture sector, we use pesticides, fertilizers, and these fertilizers and pesticides are most of the time, especially in India, are overused. So they are not optimally used. So since they are not optimally used, so during the rainy season, during the canal irrigation, they are transported to the nearby water bodies, and ultimately they result into increased contamination of heavy metals into the rivers or the nearby water bodies. Okay, so this is how the contamination with respect to heavy metals is increasing in the water bodies. This is what report is saying. So you can quote these reports even in the mains examination as well. In the prelims examination, these things could be asked, that which of the following are the examples of heavy metals that are acting as the contaminants in the river bodies. So those are the examples. Then they could also talk about the different sources that are there. So if you know these concepts, easily you can figure out what exactly should be the right answer. Now it is also talking about India's forest. They are converting into climate hotspots. The forest ecosystem, the report is saying that they are converting into climate hotspots. What does it mean? तो climate hotspot का मतलब ये है all those areas which are getting impacted by the climate change and adversely affecting the biodiversity and the ecosystem of that area. So any area which is getting impacted severely, adversely by the climate change or global warming, and obviously it will further impact the biodiversity and the ecological sustainability. So those areas are called climate hotspot, and the report is saying that because of this, the forests are converting into hotspot, climate hotspot. It is saying that by 2030, nearly 50 to 60% of the forest ecosystem will convert into climate hotspot, and by 2050, nearly 100% of the forest will convert into climate hotspot. It means that the forests would be adversely impacted by the climate change and the global warming. By 2050, all the forest ecosystem would be adversely impacted. As of now, by 2030, nearly 50-60% would be adversely impacted if the current rate of environment degradation continues. Make sense? So forest cover likely to become climate hotspot, and then almost entire forest cover is at the severe risk. We have discussed all these things. Climate hotspot are the areas which are likely to face severe impacts of climate change, ultimately threatening biodiversity and the ecosystem stability or sustainability. Then, since we are talking about the state of environment report, we should also know that there is a concept of World Environment Day. So basically, World Environment Day is celebrated every 5th June by the international community. It is an initiative of the United Nations, and on every 5th of June, the world celebrates, the international communities celebrates World Environment Day with the intent of, with the objective of creating awareness at the global level regarding the environment degradation. So, obviously, they also run certain campaigns in order to create awareness at the global level, at the regional level, at the community level. So, it was established by UN Assembly during Stockholm Conference. Stockholm Conference was held in 1972. It could be referred to as the first landmark international, I would say, the development which started talking about the impact of developmental activities over the human environment. So, this 1972, the year holds significant importance because of the fact that Stockholm Conference was held, and for the first time the international communities started talking about the impact of the developmental activities over the environment, over the human environment, the environment which surrounds the human beings. And this Environment Day is celebrated every year. We have talked about this. 5th June, global platform for participation. So, the majority of the countries of the world participate in this, and the theme for 2022, not that important, but yes, these phrases you can use or you can expect in the essay papers. So, you should read about these things. Only one earth, living sustainably in harmony with the nature. So, such topics could be written in our essay paper. They could be given as a topic among those 8 topics that are given in the essay. Such topics could be picked up. Okay. Then moving further, coming to the second topic now. The second topic is related to climate finance. Although the report talks about certain important aspects, but before coming to the report, let me give you the background of climate financing at the international level. And it is all related to global warming and climate change. So, it is all related to global warming and climate change. So, the first landmark development, I would say, I would trace from 1992. Although in 1970s also, the scientific community developed mechanism to raise funds in order to create awareness with respect to the increasing level of CO2 in the atmosphere. But there is nothing as important in the name of climate fund. We do not have any important nomenclature there. So, important nomenclature begins from 1992. 1992, you should know about Rio Summit. Rio Summit. Rio is an important city in Brazil. So, Rio Summit, which led to the creation of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And this UNFCCC in 1994 established something called as Global Environment Facility. So, this Global Environment Facility, it is a financial instrument, financial mechanism It is a financial mechanism, it is a financial instrument, obviously at the global level, wherein it was decided that the developed countries of the world, by taking the historical responsibility of the global warming and climate change, will give some money, give some financial assistance to the developing countries. So, this was the idea given under Global Environment Facility, that the developed countries which became developed at the cost of the environment in the past, they contributed to global greenhouse gas emissions. So, they have caused historical damage to the past. They have caused historical damage to the environment in the past. So, by holding that responsibility, they thought of, or they accepted the idea of giving some financial assistance to the developing countries, because now the developing countries are causing the environmental pollution, the environmental degradation, because it is now the developing countries who are expanding, who are growing, who are emerging as the nations, and now they are utilizing most of the fossil resources in order to generate energy, and they are causing huge environmental degradation. So, the developed countries will provide financial assistance, technological assistance, and this idea was proposed or got formulated in Global Environment Facility, which was established in the year 1994 under the purview of UNFCCC. So, this is the first major development with respect to the financial mechanism at the global level to deal with the crisis of climate change. Okay, but it was non-binding in nature. So, since it was non-binding, it was non-enforceable, so it remained merely symbolic in nature. Even today also, it is just symbolic in nature. Whatever developed countries committed for, they never fulfilled all those commitments. So, it remained non-binding and symbolic in nature. No development has happened concrete with respect to the Global Environment Facility. Then 1997, you must have heard of Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol proposed the idea of Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. Under this CDM, again similar to GEF, Global Environment Facility, the developed countries were expected to finance the emission reduction projects in the developing countries. So, all those projects which are contributing to emission reduction, those projects were to be financed by the developed countries under CDM, under Clean Development Mechanism. So, this was another idea proposed under Kyoto Protocol in 1997. Then 2009, I would write here, 2009 Copenhagen city. Then in this Copenhagen summit, the idea of Green Climate Fund was proposed. So, for the first time, the idea of Green Climate Fund, although it has more or less similar understanding, but the Green Climate Fund, this phrase for the first time was proposed in this Copenhagen summit in 2009, and this got established in Cancun Summit, Cancun, or Cancun, if you know, it is a city in Mexico. If you know Yucatan Peninsula, so it is a beach city, a beautiful city. Cancun Summit. So this GCF, Green Climate Fund, was established, and under this Green Climate Fund, the developed countries of the world committed for providing 100 billion US dollar to the developing countries every year. So this is the idea of GCF. So under this, $100 billion US dollar was committed by the developed countries to be provided to the developing countries in the form of maybe grants, maybe loans that are to be given at the concessional rates. So all those things were to be done, and around 100 million US dollar was proposed by the developed countries that they would be giving it to the developing countries under this Green Climate Fund. But again, all these developments are symbolic. They most of the time, majority of the time, the developed countries have failed what they committed for. Then I'll give you one more important development. 2013, an important development, an important concept of loss and damage fund came in Warsaw. So it was Warsaw Conference, wherein this idea of loss and damage fund was given, again similar to this GCF, GEF and all those funding mechanisms. It is also wherein the developed countries are taking the historical responsibility of damaging the environment, and now in order to compensate that, they have created loss and damage fund, which shall be helping the developing countries in taking the projects which are emission reduction projects, and also this fund is to be utilized for the technological developments so that the environment is lesser polluted. Okay, and this idea which got proposed in Warsaw 2013, loss and damage fund, got strengthened in 2022. If you know Sharm Sheikh is again an important resort city in Egypt, in southern part of Egypt. So over here, this idea got strengthened that the developed countries should start facilitating, start providing those funds which could be useful for the developing countries. Okay, so this is the entire idea of climate finance. Now let's see what is the report saying with respect to this. What exactly is the status of these funds which are, okay, I'm sorry. Just give me a moment. Okay, so now let's see that. What exactly the report is saying. So there are critical gaps as per the report. This climate finance report was prepared by an independent expert group, so not that important, but report key findings are important. So the key finding is that only 16% of the climate finance is low cost. So as I said that these countries were expected to provide the funds at the low cost, at the concessional rate, but only 16% of the climate finance is at the low cost. So ultimately it is not benefiting the developing countries, rather it is benefiting the developed countries. So most benefits donor countries rather than the poor nations. So the idea was that the poor nations, the underdeveloped countries, the small islands, the most vulnerable countries should reap the benefit, but it is happening otherwise. So that is what the critical gap exists in the climate finance. Now, the developing countries nearly 2 trillion annually. So, this report is saying that the countries need 2 trillion annually. There are reports which says that the developing countries need nearly 4 to 6 trillion US dollar in order to fight against the global warming, climate change and the different kinds of environmental degradations which is occurring because of the developmental activities. Okay. So, this was about the climate finance. Now, moving further, the last topic for the day. So, this is about the green jobs. This topic is about the green jobs. So, in fact, Prime Minister Modi in one of his speeches also highlighted about the importance or the emphasis over the green jobs. So, what exactly is green jobs? As the name suggests, green means whatever is sustainable, whatever is eco-friendly, So, all those jobs which are kind of promoting the eco-friendly and sustainable economic activities which are involved in doing all those economic activities which are sustainable, which are eco-friendly, those jobs are said to be green jobs. So, obviously these jobs will have positive environmental impact. These are the jobs which directly benefit to the planet and contribute to environmental welfare. Make sense? Then these are the jobs, these are the economic activities which are responsible for low carbon intensity. So, the carbon emission would be relatively very less. So, they have reducing negative environmental impact of economic sectors. Then what are the important sectors where the key green jobs should be promoted? So, obviously renewable energy, conservation sector, then energy efficiency, resource management, in fact waste to energy initiatives, all those jobs are typically related to green jobs. Then what are the opportunities for India when it talks about green jobs? So, this is what PM Modi highlighted, that India's efforts to create green jobs during the World Environment Day. Not this is important, but yes, these things are important, that what are the opportunity for India in order to generate the green jobs, the jobs which are related to the economic activities, ultimately contributing to sustainable development, the eco-friendly development. So, renewable energy, vast potential for trained workforce. So, we know that country has been already focusing upon energy generation through solar energy, then wind energy, geothermal energy, all these things are given emphasis upon. So, this is one sector which holds immense opportunity for India as well. Then green transport, nowadays government of India is talking about EVs, electronic vehicles. In fact, hydrogen energy is being talked about. So, all these are the examples of green transport, wherein the transportation sector is making use of the energy which is causing lesser pollution, lesser carbon emissions. Waste management, as I already said, there are initiatives which are called waste to energy initiative. So, these initiatives are contributing to the green jobs, growing sectors with employment opportunities. Obviously, once there would be processes in place in order to convert the waste into energy, that will obviously provide huge economic opportunities, job opportunities. And then urban farming. Urban farming means the rooftop farming, rooftop gardening, then kitchen gardening. So, all those farming activities which are found in the urban areas. Obviously, they have to be sustainable and they are innovative in nature. Obviously, these rooftops were not earlier used for gardening activities, but now people have realized that they can grow certain fruits, certain vegetables which are organic, which are more uh, uh, nutrient rich, and that is why they become the innovative agricultural solutions, and it is mainly talking about the urban farming. So, this will also provide certain job opportunities to the people if it is done at a large scale. So, this is all about the all the topics that we were supposed to discuss, and our 2022 topics mostly complete, and in the next session I shall be coming up with the next set of topics, maybe related to 2023 and 2024 together, all those topics which hold great importance for the prelims examination. So, thank you so very much. Have a great day.